Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous! Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey mamas, welcome back to the show. I am so delighted to be back here with you. I want to talk about something that I have experienced absolutely firsthand, and I'm sure many of us experience this as well on this journey. We know firsthand how challenging it can be to blend the intense demands of an academic career with the beautiful chaos of motherhood, right? But today, we are going to take on one of the biggest hurdles that trips us up in that juggling act, the cycle of self-doubt, which then leads to procrastination, which then leads to last-minute panic that leaves us feeling burnt out, questioning whether we even have what it takes to complete this journey. I have been there way too many times to count, beating myself up over imperfect drafts, putting off important tasks until deadlines are literally breathing down my neck, and getting stuck in these frantic binges of work, right? Followed by overwhelming mum guilt. And so we want to break free from this destructive loop. And I want to share some strategies to help you quiet those insidious self-critical voices so that we can get out of our own way and reclaim our confidence and start making consistent progress towards our big academic dreams. Because we can do this. We know we can do this. But for some reason, we get trapped in these vicious cycles of self-doubt as scholarly mamas. And so that's what we're going to take on today. I do apologize. My voice is, sounding a little bit husky. I am dealing with a cold, plus maybe the early signs of hay fever starting up. I love spring, as you know, it's like my favorite season, but it's also the season where you end up battling with all of the sneezing and coughs and everything from hay fever. So if I'm sounding a bit strange today, that's why. And you'll probably hear quite a lot of that for the next couple of months. But I'm not complaining because I am just enjoying the longer days, the extra sunshine, the beautiful blossoms, and all of the wonder that comes with spring. So I'm not complaining, right? Okay, so back to the episode, talking about breaking this diabolical cycle of self-doubt. So I think one of the first things that we need to be aware of when we are trying to tackle these issues of self-doubt and living deadline to deadline and procrastination, all these things, is the negative self-talk spiral. So this idea of not believing really in ourselves, in our abilities, beginning to think that our work is not enough, that we are not enough, that we don't deserve to be on this journey, that we are not capable of seeing it through. And then that self-doubt and lack of self-belief then leads to a cycle of procrastination, because you put things off because you don't want to face the, pain of it not being perfect, of having criticism, of having feedback that isn't necessarily flattering and positive, right? And so we develop this coping mechanism of putting things off. And what happens is that we end up entering this vicious cycle of procrastination, and it leads to frantic bursts of work. So we realize, oh my goodness, it's literally the 11th hour. I haven't done anything. I haven't started this task, and now I'm going to just binge and just get it done. But then that, in that way, we don't actually do our best work. And so that then deepens the feelings of self-doubt, because then we tell ourselves, oh, look, of course I'm not good enough because look at the work that I've produced. And, I have been on this cycle. I think before I started my PhD was when it was at its worst for me. During my previous master's degrees, I experienced all of this. And I remember, there were assignments that we would have to do. And sometimes the lecturers would say, you can send a draft, or you can send some bits of it for feedback. And I remember being the person who never would send any drafts because I felt like it wasn't good enough. It was rubbish work. It was just, my kind of initial thoughts. And when I'm working on anything, I always just allow myself to brain dump and write. And so it's never a perfect manuscript or a draft. It's always rubbish, right? And I'm okay with that bit. And I'm okay with writing, brain dumping and writing rubbish first and just refining because that's how my brain works. That's how I prefer to write. I brain dump and then I refine. I brain dump and then I edit and I refine and I brain dump and so I am happy with that. But for some reason, I wasn't comfortable enough to send those bad drafts. I wasn't comfortable enough to submit work that I did not think was of an acceptable standard. Even if it was just for feedback, even if it wasn't summative, it wasn't like a final thing, it was just for feedback. I just couldn't do that. And it worked for me. It worked for me because I was still able to do exceptionally well, produce work of a very high standard. But when I reflect, I do feel that it was a missed opportunity for my own academic growth and development to be able to get that feedback and make my work even better. So getting over myself and getting over this fear of submitting early work and using that feedback to enhance the work even more, to make it stronger, to make it better. And I did not take any of those opportunities because I was too afraid of submitting early work and getting that feedback and thinking, oh my goodness, it's not work of a high enough standard in my opinion. So yeah, at that master's level, I really did not maximize the opportunities that I had to be able to develop myself intellectually and academically. Even though, yes, I did produce high quality work, it could have been even better. And I didn't take up any of those opportunities. And I remember when I started my PhD, I had so many conversations with one of my supervisors about this because she'd known me for many, many years up to this point. And she said, yeah, she noticed that I don't like to send this initial draft unless it's perfect. And I remember that conversation staying with me for such a long time because I felt like, when you just felt like somebody speaking to you, like, oh my goodness, how are you knowing that this is what I am feeling? And I think probably because she dealt with it for years and years before with other students, right? But I felt so seen, but I also felt so safe because what she was saying to me was, it's okay to send the bad drafts. It's okay to, send work that isn't perfect. I am here to help you. I am here to support you. I am not here to judge you. I am not here to make you feel awful. I am here to do my job as a supervisor to help you get to the end of this journey and to help you become an independent researcher. And that meant so much to me because it allowed me to create a sense of safety, not just with her as a supervisor, but create a sense of safety for myself to know that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to struggle at times on this journey. It's okay to be honest with yourself about this. Be honest. You are not submitting drafts. You are not planning for your own success on this journey. Instead, you're living deadline to deadline. And this is because you don't believe in yourself, because you are experiencing those feelings of self-doubt. You're experiencing those feelings of perfectionism. You want everything to be perfect. You don't want the negative feedback. It feels like it's hitting deep for you, right? It's feeling like it's reflecting on your character, reflecting on your ability, reflecting on who you are as a person. And it's really not. It's really a tool. By getting that feedback, it's a tool and a strategy to help you become a better researcher, to help you become a better writer, to help you to learn and grow on this journey. And also that extends to the other hats that you wear as well, because this is not just about the PhD journey or the graduate school journey, but this is also about blending these various aspects of ourselves. And believe me, if you are feeling those feelings in relation to your PhD journey, I will bet my bottom dollar that you are probably approaching the other areas of your life in exactly the same way. You want to be the perfect mother. You want to be the perfect wife. You want to do everything perfectly. And when you don't feel that you can do that, you do nothing at all. And so these feelings of self-doubt really need to be unpacked a little bit and, unpacking the roots of those feelings and seeing how can we shift our mindset to one of empowerment and not one of self-doubt. And so obviously, if we go to dig a little bit deeper as to where are these feelings of self-doubt coming from, of course, we've got the societal and the cultural pressures, right, of trying to be the super mums and, the myth that you need to be perfect, you need to have it all. That's a breeding ground for that self-criticism, right? Because we feel like we need to show up in a certain way. We're carrying so much on our shoulders as scholarly mamas that we don't want to disappoint anybody. We don't want to let anyone down. We don't want to let our supervisors down. We don't want to let our spouses down. We don't want to let our kids down. We don't want to let our extended families down because we are carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And an extension of that is obviously, yes, your academic journey, but especially being from a minority background, navigating academia as a mom, being in the minority in society as being a mother with a PhD or a mother in academia, or even just being the first in your family to attend university and having to navigate academia as a minority in so many different ways. That can be a heavy load to carry. And as I mentioned, extending that to parenthood, motherhood, that can be an increased catalyst for that self-scrutiny and questioning our identity, questioning what we are truly capable of, measuring up ourselves against this perceived gold standard of what it means to be a mum, and in particular, what it means to be a scholarly mama. What it means to be a mum who is pursuing her academic goals, her career goals. Our perception of that is so skewed by other people's expectations of us. And I think that these are all the kind of, the underlying things that create this sense of self-doubt. And obviously, like I mentioned, leads on to procrastination and deadline to deadline living, and also then increase mum guilt afterwards because we've burned ourselves out trying to meet the last minute deadline. And so one of the things that really helped me when I was dealing with all of these feelings of self-doubt, really just thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough. I'm questioning the quality of my work. I don't want people to see work that isn't up to a certain standard because what will they think of me? And it's just going to confirm why I can't do this and why I'm not working to a certain standard. All those negative thoughts, all that negative self-talk, how do we silence that and cultivate a practice of self-compassion? compassion? How do we introduce the idea even of self-compassion? And so one of the things, like I mentioned, about having that acceptance, I guess, of the fact that I am not perfect. So trying to produce work that is perfect is an unrealistic expectation. I am not a perfect person. And therefore, any work that I produce is going to be imperfect by that very nature. An imperfect person cannot produce perfect work. And once I accepted that and I realized that even in imperfection, there can be safety. I can be safe even if I am not perfect. I can love myself even if I am not perfect. I can do a PhD and do it well, even if I am not perfect. I can be a good mother to my 3 amazing little heartbeats, even if I am not perfect. I can enjoy a thriving marriage with my husband for over 17 years and counting and not be perfect because I am not a perfect person. And so I cannot have expectations of perfection in anything that I do. And that was totally okay. And once I found safety in that, I was able to cultivate this practice of self-compassion and extend the same kindness that I give to other people, the same level of acceptance and forgiveness and understanding that I give to other people, I could give that to myself. I can extend that to myself. This radical act of self-love, right? I talked earlier, I think in a couple episodes back, about self-love being a revolutionary success strategy. Because when you begin to love yourself and you begin to extend the same kindness that you would give to everybody else and the same level of understanding that you would give to everybody else, when you extend that to yourself, then you are able to silence these thoughts of self-doubt. And I think one of the other things as well is noticing that negative self-talk, because I think a lot of times it's so subtle, it's so habitual for us, and we get into these vicious cycles and it feels like it's just part of who we are, that we don't even realize that we are speaking negatively to ourselves. And so being able to notice that, call that out, and replace that with thoughts of self-compassion. One of the things I always share with my sons is the 3 C's when it comes to dealing with emotions and things. Now, I am not a psychologist. I'm not an expert. These are just tips that I have picked up along the way as a mama, as a wife, as a scholar. And so I'm just sharing this with you from lived experience. So if you find it helpful, great. If it's not helpful, please do leave it. But here, I'm sharing this with you from lived experience. And one of the things that I share with my sons is the 3 C's, right? The first thing, when you've got this emotion, you're dealing with something, is to call it out, right? Call it out and name it. Don't let it hide, don't let it live in secrecy. Call it out and then challenge it. What evidence do you have for or against this thought? Where is it coming from? Can you challenge it? Do you have evidence to prove otherwise? And once you challenge it, then you are empowered to change it. You can replace that thought with another thought, and that then can allow you to change the way you act, the way you respond from a place of empowerment, right? And so the 3 C's, you call it out, you challenge it, and then you can potentially change it. And I share this with my sons all the time, because obviously I have learned the hard way of allowing thoughts to control my results, allowing these thoughts to control how I feel and how I act. And, a lot of times we just notice the results. We just think, oh, look, I've, burnt myself out trying to meet this deadline. Oh, now I feel so guilty. All those are results. But if you go back and actually look at, where is this coming from? Is there evidence that I can change some of the thoughts I'm having so that I can get the result that I want? And so I'm still on that journey. I am not here to make anyone think that I am living this completely perfect life. I still have some of those thoughts. I still feel all these things. I still experience all these things, but I am on an intentional journey to change the way that I approach hard things, the way that I approach new things, the way that I approach things that, make me have to dig really deep to show up for myself. And so that's what I'm doing. And I really hope that in discussing this today, that this will help you do the same as well. And so going back to this idea of cultivating a practice of self-compassion, that helps me to reduce all of the anxiety and all the negative thoughts and the negative self-talk that I have around, facing a particular deadline or facing something that feels difficult, and increases my motivation to start early, increases my motivation to get the job done, and helps me to stop procrastinating as much, helps me to stop kind of just living for deadline to deadline, but allows me to feel empowered and motivated to start. And that doesn't mean start and just get it all done. It just might mean start small, taking baby steps, looking at, what are the habits and how can I change those in order to meet my deadlines with a bit more enthusiasm and confidence moving forward. And so you might be wondering, well, how did you actually, what were the actual strategies that you used to allow you to take imperfect action? Like, what did you actually do to allow you to be able to do that with more confidence and less self-doubt? And so the first thing that I did was accepted that done was better than perfect. So I reframed this idea of what done meant. Because I think one of the things with success is that you need to define, well, what does success actually look like for you? What does that mean for you? So if you think that success is perfection, well, then you're never going to achieve success. It just is an unreachable, unattainable standard. But if you reframe that thought to one where done is actually closer to your version of success than perfection is, especially when it comes to sharing imperfect drafts with supervisors or, just getting started on tasks, you then realize that actually by starting, you are actually closer to being done and therefore closer to being in a position to create success for yourself than you are putting it off. So let's talk about what the actual techniques are to help you make consistent progress. One thing might be free writing. I talked about this earlier about brain dumping, just getting everything out. It does not matter how it looks, how it sounds, if it flows, none of that. Just writing your thoughts down. It might be that you jot things down at different times. It doesn't have to be all at once. It may not be that you've got a whole day to sit and write everything. It may be in between nappy changes. It may be in between naps. It may be in between work. It may be in the evening after work, in the morning before work. Little pockets of time that you've created for yourself. If a thought comes up and it's like, oh, I've got a light bulb moment while I'm in the shower about some particular argument that I'm trying to make for my PhD, I am going to write that down as a random thought. I'm going to jot that down somewhere and I can always come back to that later. So just literally just free writing, brain dumping, just literally with no filter, writing everything down as and when it comes to you, or if you have a block of time for writing, just using that to free write. No editing, no refining, no, checking flow and none of that, just free writing. The other thing that helped me was time blocking and setting time aside to just work on a task. A lot of times we think that time is infinite. This is one of the challenges, right? That we think we've got infinite time. We can pull it together at the last minute. And so we don't need to plan in advance. We don't need to start working on anything. But if you actually allocate time for writing on a particular chapter, for example, even if you haven't necessarily thought in advance about what you're going to write, as in the actual words you're going to write and how you're going to organize your thoughts, but just the act of booking that time on your calendar, committing to a period of time on your calendar where you will just work on that task. And this could be just free writing. This could be just
literally writing your thoughts about the actual chapter. It may not even be writing the chapter itself. It could be writing how you feel about writing this chapter, or it could be writing some random thoughts you've had about the subject of that chapter. But just the act of putting that on your calendar is so useful because you have committed. You have made the decision that during this time, you are going to write something. It doesn't matter the quality of that thing. You've just committed to writing something. So that allows you then to plan in advance and say, actually, okay, so my deadline is X date. I am going to plan ahead and I'm going to write something during these hours. Right now, I am writing some manuscripts. I am also preparing for a conference, and I have put those dates in my calendar and I've worked backwards and I've said, okay, these are the times I'm going to work on these manuscripts. These are the times I'm going to work on my presentation. These are the times I'm going to prepare for XYZ. In other words, these are the dates that are actually booked in my calendar, and times are booked out to allow me to reach my goal by those dates. This is not just a kind of thought I'm carrying around in my head of, oh, I've got this deadline. No, I've actually blocked the time out on my calendar to work on those things. And I think one of the other things here to quickly mention is that, set yourself deadlines before deadlines. Like if you are deadline driven, set your deadline earlier than the actual deadline. And then that's the date that you put in your calendar. And so, just the act of booking things in really, really helps. And then anchoring these tasks to routines. And I think this is one of the hardest things, I think, for us as scholarly mamas, because you see on Instagram and all these other places, all these productivity experts are telling you, oh, have this and that structure and have this routine. But when you are a tired mama and it feels like you have no control sometimes over your routine, if your kids are very young, sometimes, you don't have necessarily the ability to say, yep, I'm going to work during this time, because if they're on a feeding schedule, or if they are, especially if they're breastfeeding, for example, it may be that their routine is all over the place. They don't yet really have much of a routine. You are dealing with sleep deprivation as a result of that. And so I think while it's important to try and anchor your, plans around a routine so that you can get into the flow, it becomes easier to work on that task because your brain is already like a few steps ahead. I think that as a reality, as a mama, it might be that you create buffers for yourself. So even though, yes, you're trying to anchor to a routine, and even though you want to plan ahead, you need to create those buffers, because if you don't, when things go to pot with the kids, or, someone's sick, or the baby's not sleeping well and going through a period of sleep regression and being awake more at night, or sleeping on a slightly different schedule than what they're used to, then it doesn't throw you completely off, because you've built those buffers in so that you can kind of ride with the tide a little bit. And so I think, yes, it's important to anchor to routines, but I think it's also equally important to have buffers within that plan so that you can manage the highs and the lows of dealing with all the other things at home, as well as getting your work done. And so that's definitely what I did. Even when I was writing my thesis, I had a plan, and I had, I knew my deadline. I worked backwards. I had a plan. I worked everything out according to that plan. But within that plan, I had loads and loads of buffer time, because the last thing I wanted as a new mama, again, which I was writing my thesis, I wrote the majority of my thesis after coming back from maternity leave with my third son. And so a lot of that writing was at a time where my son was little and not sleeping well and going through all kinds of cycles. So building those buffers in really helped me to be able to get through those cycles, get through those ups and downs, get through those highs and lows in terms of my productivity. The other thing, and I mentioned this before, but it's really important to reiterate this, getting to a consistent stride of imperfection, right? And that is more productive than all or nothing work binges. So this idea of accepting, yes, it's okay to submit imperfect work. It's okay to, seek feedback on an early draft. It's okay to refine and revise if I need to, because making some kind of progress, whether it be imperfect or else, is more productive for you, right? Gets you closer to your goal than this kind of, oh, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. And then you end up at the last minute scrambling it together, not producing your best work, and therefore feeling even worse afterwards, because what has happened is that you've now sacrificed all the time with your family because you're working around the clock to meet this deadline, and you feel even more guilt after that. So the idea of getting to an imperfect, consistent stride is much better for the way you think about yourself, and also better for your productivity as well. And so one of the things I am very passionate about is blending academic pursuits with motherhood, and doing so in a way that works for you, but doing so unapologetically, normalizing the reality that being a mother makes our paths complicated. It makes it harder. That's a reality that we have to accept. But it also makes it meaningful. It also makes this journey mean so much more, because we're not just doing this for ourselves. Yes, we are doing it for ourselves, but we are also doing this for the future of our family, for our kids, for our extended family potentially, especially if you're a first generation. You want to show other people that it's possible to achieve this goal, but at the same time, recognizing that this journey is going to be a little bit harder, because you've got these beautiful kids that you're raising and you're trying to be present for them as well. And so I feel that as scholarly mamas, is very important for us. It's crucial for us to reach our goals without sacrificing the time with the people that we love, and without sacrificing the things that really matter to us for the sake of titles and accolades. I think that it's very important that we seek purposeful success on this journey. And then I think just calling out this mum guilt, right? Calling that out and recognizing that pursuing your intellectual growth actually benefits your children. Pursuing your intellectual growth actually benefits your children. You are able to navigate motherhood as a much more compassionate mother when you are working on yourself. When you are working on yourself, when you are investing in yourself, that helps you to become a better mother. And so this idea of feeling guilty for working on your dreams is nonsense, because it actually helps you to achieve the very dream that you want to achieve, which is to be the best mom you can be to your kids. It's not selfish for you to be pursuing your dreams. It's actually allowing you to be able to pour into the other cups that you want to pour into, because you're pouring into your cup first. You are pouring into your own cup first. You're not depleting yourself and operating from a place of self-sacrifice. You're not operating from a place of depletion, right? You're not operating from that place. You're operating from a place of fulfillment, right? And that allows you to pour into those other cups. And also, I think modeling a healthy work-life blend, a healthy work-life integration, it really sets an example for our kids that they know as they grow older that they don't have to sacrifice themselves or their families in order to pursue a dream, in order to pursue a goal, in order to, pursue a career. They are able to navigate those journeys as present parents, present people, and do so from a place where they feel like they're getting the most out of their lives. They're able to make their own highest contributions as well. And so again, it's blending your academic pursuits and motherhood without apology. Like, you don't need to pretend to not have the responsibilities that you have. They are a part of you, right? They're a part of your reality. They're a part of your life, and they enhance your life in different ways.
And in most cases, even more than an
academic pursuit or prestige or title is ever going to do. So yeah, you don't need to apologize for being a scholarly mama. You are a scholarly mama. You need to own that identity, right? And I know that overcoming these harsh self-critical voices that we carry around in our heads is hard. It's hard work. I know that. But I also know that you are strong. You are determined. You have what it takes to do this work. In fact, you had what it took even before you began this academic journey. You are enough. Don't let self-doubt and or society's unrealistic standards make you question your own capabilities. Don't let it do that. You are enough.
And so, Mama, as we bring this episode to a close, I just wanted to leave you with a few closing words of encouragement. And I want to encourage you to keep practicing that self-compassion. Even on those tough days, remember to love yourself first. Keep taking imperfect but consistent action. Even when it's hard, just start. And keep savoring the extraordinary experiences of being a mama and a scholar on this journey, because you've got this. And nothing compares to the experience of scholarly motherhood. And if you feel like you could benefit from having a detached thinking partner, a coach on this journey, please do book a free discovery call and let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we can work together. Until next time, Mama, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please do share it with another scholarly mama you know. And until next time, sending you lots of love and lots of gratitude. Speak to you soon. Take care, Mama. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on my free training called the PhD with Purpose Maminar. When you join us inside Scholarly Mamas Explore, you'll get access to this free training and so much more. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.